Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Lucas, aka 3 Point Spanish King, and today we've got our two New Zealand guests. As always, to review the fourth day, we've got Michael live outside his house, and we have Adam in the show today. And Adam, I'll start with you. Well, I'll start with you and Michael. But Adam was here yesterday, and I said to Adam, well, if we are here this time tomorrow, that means New Zealand have batted really well. But unfortunately, that did not go to script. It was over very, very quickly. Yadav came in and it turned into an absolute spin fest. Mind you, New Zealand Southie played a shots, so it wasn't meant to be. They got absolutely steamrolled by Yadav. And Michael, a very disappointing way to end the start of the day, because it was barely the start. So a very disappointing way to end New Zealand.
Yeah, but I mean, it was, look, with 2 days to go and 5 wickets in hand, there was only one outcome, wasn't there? So, there's a point where it would have been nice to see a bit more fight, but also, thinking back, if I was a coach, would I be too upset at someone trying to hit a ball out of the park? No.
Yeah.
You just, at that point, the issue is not what happened on the last morning. The issue is what happened in the rest of the test.
Yeah.
You don't blame the bowlers for the batsman failing, and you don't blame the batsman for the bowlers not creating enough pressure. You look at what the issues were, and those are the things that you care about. There was some poor captaincy. Some of the field placements and some of the things that happened at the start of the game put New Zealand in a hole that we just couldn't get out of.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Adam about Tom Latham's captaincy, and Adam did say that he was very defensive. But that was Michael's view of today. So how did you see this morning review, Adam? What did you thought about that?
I'm trying to figure out what kind of analysis I can make after only 45 minutes of play. I guess once Ravindra got out, the rest of New Zealand innings just completely collapsed. So I think there were some great signs of them this morning, like he showed some composure, and obviously he's got the defensive technique as he showed in the first test. But as soon as he got out, obviously Jameson came in, and then Southee had a bit of a tonk, which is basically his go-to at the moment. Unfortunately, like he just hasn't been being able to contribute with a bat over the last few seasons. That's his get-out mode, isn't it? Really having a bit of a slog, and then from there, obviously Somerville and it was Nichols right at the end. He didn't really have any choice. He just decided to have a bit of fun and got himself stumped. So, I mean, that was it really in a nutshell.
Well, if there is one positive we can take from this batting innings, was the batting of Henry Nicholls and Daryl Mitchell. I thought they were very good under very difficult circumstances. Michael, how did you see them?
Yeah, well, Henry Nicholls was particularly pleasing because this is a guy who, I mean, I think I'd looked over the last 2 years, he averaged 100 against all bowling except off spin and averaged 17 against off spin or something. So he's come in with a clear weakness against one type of bowling and absolute world beater against everything else. And he's come in, sure, he got out against Ashwin first ball in the, or second ball, was first ball, second ball in the first innings. But he's faced 2 world-class off-spinners on a turning track and lasted almost 100 deliveries against them. So that's a massive bonus that a guy who has clearly had a big issue against one type of bowling has done some work on it and has managed to fix that up, it seems. That's a huge bonus. Mitchell, that's good. I mean, I still think that Glenn Phillips would have been a better pick. I don't know why we've picked an all-rounder to bat at number 3 when we had a batsman in the squad as batting cover. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, why Glenn Phillips, who was picked as the batting cover, wasn't picked as the batting cover. Something strange happened there. But yeah, look, good on him. Mitchell scored some more runs, and he's just continuing to take every chance he's given.
And Adam, you can add to that if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Daryl Mitchell. He used to play for Northern Districts a few seasons ago, and I'm based in Hamilton, which is part of Northern District. So I've always been a huge fan of Mitchell. And he's always been one of those guys, even at domestic level, that always showed some great composure and was always a guy that could get Northern Districts, when he played for Northern Districts, out of trouble. And he's always been a guy that, for me, he's always shown that he's got a really good temperament. I think that's one of his big strengths. Obviously, he's a very good player. And then, as Michael's mentioned, as soon as he's been given an opportunity at international level, he has never let the team down. He's actually really exceeded my expectations of him, to be honest. I thought he was a good player, but I think how he's adapted to international cricket has been an absolute revelation.
Yeah, he's a get the job done guy, and that's a pretty handy thing to have in your resume. You give him a task and he just does it, time after time, and you can't argue with that.
I kind of think Daryl Mitchell is also a little bit of a product of our domestic system as well, because he's kind of developed a lot over the last kind of few years or so. I mean, he's 30 now and he's really experienced, and I think he's just kind of showing that, if you let a guy develop at a certain age and they come into international cricket with a certain amount of experience behind their belt, it gives them more of an opportunity to succeed once they're given that opportunity at international level.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've seen that throughout. Like Ajaz Patel probably should have been picked 3 years before he was, or 2 years before he was. But once he's been given a chance, once he's developed into a good player. Kyle Jamieson played 3 years of domestic cricket or something before he got picked. Lockie Ferguson, he's played one test. This guy's averages 17 or something with the red ball in domestic cricket. People aren't being rushed into the team. They're given a chance to actually develop and become good players. I mean, but I think Will Young had 17 first-class centuries before he got his first test, something like that. I mean, that's now becoming standard. Jeet Raval 15 first-class centuries before he played his first test. There's players now have to earn their spot in New Zealand, which didn't used to be the case. Used to be you got picked on talent, now you're getting picked on results, and that's quite a nice thing to have. Quite a nice change.
I spoke yesterday to Adam about Tom Latham's captaincy. He said that he was very defensive and disappointed with him. What were your thoughts of his captaincy, Michael, in this test match?
I found it hard to see what some of the plans were. Like, there were some obvious ways that you could try and attack some of the batsmen, and I just couldn't figure out what he was doing. Like with Will Somerville, he had 7 guys on the leg side, one guy at deep point and one guy at a sort of straight, long off. So the massive gap on the offside. You're obviously trying to get the batsman to play through the covers or whatever to try and expose the inside edge. But the Indian batsmen were good enough that Somerville felt like any time he moved outside off stump, he got hit for an easy single or an easy 2. So he couldn't bowl there. He had to bowl on middle stump and just try and tuck the batsman up, and they just tucked it around the corner and ran a single. Or they tucked it around the corner and had no hesitation, just easy defending shot, no pressure, nothing. If he had a couple of guys in the covers and bowling outside off stump and turning the ball in and making them play the second line, he would have had a chance of picking up wickets, but he had no opportunity to do that because the fields didn't give him a chance, didn't give him anything to bowl at. Jamieson didn't have guys back on the pull, so he couldn't bang it in. We saw, the Indian Siraj had someone back on the pull. Our guys were sort of caught in two minds. Do they attack it or not? It's a bouncy track, but it wasn't consistent bounce. So it was a perfect pitch for banging it in. We didn't give them the fields to do that. And so we cut off the mode of dismissal, and it made it predictable as to what we were going to do without giving ways to get wickets. I just thought it was, we could have bowled India out for 200 in that first innings, and it would have been a real good game. Instead, we let them get 350-ish, was it 325? And it was, and look great that Ajaz Patel got 10 wickets, but he's the only one we gave fields to get wickets to. Like, wonderful achievement, no doubt about that. And, you still got to bowl really well to do that. But it was partially because we were giving him a vacuum at the other end.
Anything to add to that, Adam?
I can't really argue with Michael, to be honest. I think he's 100% spot on. In terms of Ajaz getting those 10 wickets, I mean, you're right. No one at the other end even looked like getting a wicket. There was barely a false shot at the other end, was there?
Yeah, look, there was there was a drop catch off Somerville, and there was an edge that bounced in front of slips off Southey, and I think that was it. That was it for the entire 220 overs or whatever at the other, however many overs it was at the other end. There were 2 chances. And that's just, I mean, some of that's got to come down to the bowling, but some of it also you've got to say, well, why were the field settings not there to make the batsman give up chances? Because captaincy is about getting in the field, in the batsman's head, to create opportunities for the bowlers. As part of it is that, and Latham just wasn't doing that. I don't think. I mean, but in saying that, it's a really tough art, and coming in, these guys are really good in their conditions, so you've got to cut them a bit of slack. But it did feel like our entire plan was, let's try and not concede too many runs from one end and see if Ajaz can pick up wickets at the other. And I think that's a fine plan on day 4. It's not a great plan on day 1 and 2.
Well, speaking of Ajaz Patel, I mentioned him with Michael. You know, it's a wonderful achievement to have only 3 bowlers. I think Jim Laker and Kumble, and now Ajaz Patel have done this. Unfortunately, we probably won't be remembering the beatdown of New Zealand, the hands of India. But you know, we will, as I said to Adam yesterday, we will give him credit because it was an unbelievable achievement. How did you see that? Did you ever thought that he would be the bowler to take 10 wickets in a match?
well, jokingly before the series, I did say that if India prepared a spinning track, Ajaz Patel's such a good bowler, he could rip the whole team out. I didn't quite expect it to happen like that. But I did say,
that literally, did you?
I didn't quite mean that literally. But what I said was that I said I felt New Zealand were going to take some points out of the series. And I said the reason was, if they give us a track that doesn't have too much in it for the bowlers, our batsmen are good enough to bat out a couple of days and save it and have a draw. If there's a pitch that really spins, Ajaz Patel is good enough that he could cause some real problems for India. I think both of those things came true. We didn't beat them. You know, Ajaz Patel didn't win the game because the rest of our players didn't play very well. But you've got to say, I mean, that was an outstanding achievement. And I mean, he's using a ball he's not familiar with. The SG ball is different, and some of the spinners find it really hard to bowl with. He's playing in conditions. I mean, he'd never played on that ground before. He didn't know the dimensions. He didn't know what it was going to do. He had to learn it on the spot, and he did. And he picked up 10 wickets. I mean, outstanding. Or did he get 13, 14 or something out of it overall? You know, outstanding.
Well, even in the second innings, where he took the first 2 wickets, he thought, "Oh, here we go again. He's going to get them all the wickets again." But I made this joke to Adam that he's yet to get a wicket in New Zealand. All his wickets have been away outside of New Zealand, which is unbelievable within itself.
Yeah, well, it's the nature of the pitches that he's played on a little bit, and he did actually create a couple of chances. He had BJ Watling behind the stumps, who's not a great keeper to spin. So he's had a couple of chances missed in New Zealand. But to be fair, Tom Blundell's not a great keeper to spin either. We do have a great keeper to spin, but it's Tom Latham. He's opening the batting and so doesn't want to keep. You know? Yeah. So you'd imagine if we had Latham, we may well the spinners might do a little bit better because the keeper makes a big difference for a spinner. But I think Southey's had 6 or 7 chances that he's missed out on, and he had 6 or 7 wickets to his tally. All of a sudden, his ridiculously bad average is only moderately bad.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that, Adam? What Michael just said about Tom Latham being the keeper? Is that something that you would actually prefer?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think he's the best keeper in New Zealand by some distance, to be honest. Watch his keeping in the series against Bangladesh in the T20 series, and he was phenomenal. Considering, it's not something that he does, often apart from playing in the white ball formats. And also need to forget that he just come out of a winter in New Zealand. He was incredible, especially keeping against Ajaz Patel as well. And the ball was keeping low and spinning, and obviously the variable bounce in Bangladesh. I thought he was incredible. There was a stumping that I can't remember the dismissal, but he was lightning behind the stumps. I think he's the best natural keeper in New Zealand. He's also a great slip fielder. He's also a very, very good fielder. He's also a very, very good opening batsman. So, I mean, unfortunately, his problem is that he's an opening batsman in Test cricket, and there'd be a reluctance for him to obviously open the batting and also to keep as well.
Yeah, and that's it. We feel that you can't open the batting and keep, and it's easier to replace a keeper than it is to find another opening batsman who can average 40 in New Zealand conditions. They don't come along very often. So if you've got one, it's much better to lose a keeper slightly.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can't have what you can't get. So I presume that everybody probably wants Tom Latham as keeper, but because he's an opener, you're going to get questions. If he starts to fail with the bat and make low scores, people are going to think, oh, well, because he's keeping, his batting's going to be his wicket keeping is the reason his batting's falling off. You're going to get questions like that.
He himself says he can't do it. If he's keeping, he can't transition to opening the batting because you're moving, keeping's a front on, batting's a side on. It takes a while to get your mind from one to the other, and he found that he was getting out early all the time when he was trying to keep and open. So you need to actually have a bit of time to switch from one mode to another.
Okay, so we've probably done this match because it was unfortunately a beatdown of this review.
Not much to say, yeah.
Well, I said to you, Michael, that how often do India get 350? Then they just absolutely steamroll teams in the next innings. That seems to be a common recurrence in India. So
it's not just in India, actually. It happens all over the world. It happens quite often that if a team bats for more than 120 overs, that the opposition team loses 3 wickets fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And against India, the easiest time to bat is at the start of the innings. If they get you down 3 quickly, you're in big trouble because their spinners come into it, and guys facing, anyone new to the crease facing a spinner against any good spinner on a turning track is pretty close to impossible. You've got to it's flip a coin if you make it 6 balls or not. And after you get there, then you've got a chance to bat on. But a good spinner against a new batsman is they're just mincemeat until you get your feet moving. So it does happen quite often. If you lose 3 quick wickets because the field the guys are tired from being in the field, it happens in England, it happens in New Zealand, it happens in Australia, it happens all over the world. 120 overs seems to be about a limit. Maybe in New Zealand it's about 140 because it's not quite as hot. But once you've been in the field for that amount of time, your footwork goes. It takes a while to get into it. And as we just saw, an absolute textbook example of that. It was like all of a sudden, players, 3 wickets fell quickly, and then it's game over.
Literally game over. Now, I was actually going to do each player reviews out of 10, but because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to give your best player of this series and your worst player. So we'll start with the best player, Michael. Who do you think was New Zealand's best player of this series?
Tim Southee. I think Tim Southee was our best player. Pitches didn't suit him, and yet, he bowled he didn't pick up any wickets in the last match, but he bowled really, really well. He just didn't have the luck go his way. But I thought that he created pressure when he was bowling. He made things difficult for the batsman, and then the first match he was quite outstanding. So for me, he was our best player of that series. Okay, and you, Adam?
I'm going to go Ajaz Patel, not just only on the strength of the last Test match, but I think also he did have his moments in the first Test, and I think we've also got to consider that he's come out of a winter in New Zealand and has only played a few matches for Central District. So I think also coming into foreign conditions as well, and I think for me he was New Zealand's player of the series. However, I do agree with Michael that Tim Southee had a really good series. I think Patel just pipped Southee.
Yeah, I'm personally going to go with a fast bowler. I'm going to go with Jamieson. I thought when you spoke of Jamieson, you thought, is he really going to impact these pitches? Because fast bowling in India is very hard to do with an opposition. And I thought that first Test he was absolutely outstanding. And probably proved himself that he belongs in that category with Cummins and Hazelwood. Yes, he didn't have much fortune in the second Test, as like Tim Southee. But I just thought this really made Jamieson as a proper bowler in all conditions, in my opinion. Now, we're going to go with, I was going to say the worst, but we'll go most disappointed player of the series. We'll start with you, Michael.
Look, by results, you'd say Will Somerville, but by performance, I'd say Ross Taylor. Will Somerville was quite unlucky, I thought, whereas Ross Taylor just played badly. You know, and he's a better player than what he showed us. So I'd say Ross Taylor was the biggest disappointment.
And you, Adam?
I'm gonna go Tom Blundell. I think he's been given a massive chance this summer, especially with the retirement of BJ Watling, and it was his chance to kind of make the keeping position his own. I think that he really struggled with the bat. I think his decision making last night was to be honest, was average at best. I mean, hitting it straight to the fielder and then going for a run and getting himself run out, for me was just kind of showed you the kind of pressure that obviously he's under at the moment. And also with the keeping gloves, I understand that it's India, but he did miss a few little chances along the way. So I think Tom Blundell, when I consider that this was a massive opportunity for him to really stake his claim for the keeping position.
Yeah, I actually agree with Adam. I was going to go with Tom Blundell. I could have went with Ross Taylor, but Tom Blundell, we've all seen his talents where he made that wonderful 100 at the MCG when New Zealand were in a bit of trouble. And I just think he had a perfect opportunity to say, you know what, I'm the keeper. I belong in this team. And I think he just wasn't up to standard. And that run out was absolutely debacle. That just can't happen. Your team is getting absolutely belted. And you make a decision like that on that run out. That's just very poor cricket from my mind, from a guy that's obviously got a lot of talent in Tom Blundell. That was disappointing. Okay, so on to next for New Zealand. They've got a test series. I think I might be wrong, so you have to correct me, Michael, Adam, against Bangladesh first, then South Africa.
Yes, Bangladesh.
Yeah. What would you like? What would you like to see in that Bangladesh series?
I'd like to see the whole series being over in 5 days. I think we should just absolutely smash them. We need to pick up after that game. We should just go out, roll out a green seamer, play 4 quicks, and just destroy them. That's what I'd like to see.
Geez, I wish they can do that. I wish Australia could do that to England, but unfortunately, green tops play into their advantage. So unfortunately, I can't wish that. But and you, Adam, of course, same thing.
Look, I'm going to disagree with Michael. I'd like a really competitive series. However, if it is competitive, it might mean that a lot of our boys are out of form. So I'm a little bit conflicted. It'd be nice to see an actual good series for a change. Unfortunately, I think New Zealand should really wipe the floor with Bangladesh. Unfortunately, I mean, following a little bit of the test match going on between Bangladesh and Pakistan, and I think in Bangladesh's second innings, they'll roll pretty quickly in their home conditions. So I think that their batsmen are really going to struggle when they come over to face our bowling attack. Unfortunately, we should crush them.
Yeah, and also without Shakib, he's a massive hole. I mean, he's got a genuine claim to be the best player in the world if he's playing, but he's missed 17 out of the last 20 matches or something. I mean, are you the best player in the world if you don't actually play? And he's pulled out for personal reasons. And I get he doesn't actually live in Bangladesh, and he has issues getting to there. He lives in the States, and he's married an American and lives in the Midwest somewhere, and it makes travel difficult. But it's like, yeah, I get that, but also, like, dude, you've got a chance to go down in history as one of the all-time greats. He could be in the conversation with Callis and Sobers, and instead he's going to be a footnote like Vinu Mankad or someone like that who could have been great but wasn't quite.
Okay, I think we're going to actually. I do have one final question, and that is to do with that Bangladesh South Africa series, and it's got to do with Ross Taylor. If he doesn't find form in that Bangladesh series, will that be it for Ross Taylor? Is it a matter of that? No, he now needs runs.
I don't know that he's going to be entirely judged on a couple of international matches. I think that if he's batting well in the nets and scored some runs for Central, a couple of bad performances would be overlooked. However, if he doesn't have those things happen, and he's, then they might say it's time to focus on one-dayers and just focus on the put the World Cup as your goal and try and get to that next World Cup and end there. But yeah, it would be sad. I mean, the guy's still averaged 40 over the last 3 years. He's had a couple of bad innings, but he hasn't been completely out of position, out of touch. It's not like he's Ken Rutherford and averaging 26.
Yeah. Agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, look, I would probably keep Ross Taylor into the end of the season, but I also think it depends on the New Zealand lineup, because I know that Kane Williamson's going to be out. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for, and then also probably depends on the form of Will Young as well, and also the status of Devon Conway. I'm not sure whether Devon Conway is going to be back for the Bangladesh series. I heard that he may be, which means he'd just slot into the opening position. I think Will Young probably takes Kane Williamson's slot, or maybe vice versa. And then I think Ross Taylor can probably stay in the side, probably to the end of the season. And I agree with Michael. Like, he's struggling a little bit, but I think I mentioned the other day when I spoke with you that there's a few guys around world cricket at the moment that's struggling. Azhar Ali, you've got Rahane, you've got Pujara, you've got Shai Hope, but these respective teams are keeping those guys in based on historical performances, and I think New Zealand at the moment should be able to beat Bangladesh with or without a big contribution from Ross Taylor. So I think that he'll end up staying in the team over the summer. And I think his experience will be invaluable against the series against South Africa.
Okay, well, that will be the end of the stream. Thank you guys for reviewing these two test matches. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
And we look forward to you reviewing the Bangladesh series coming up in the South Africa series. And Michael, that's a magnificent view you've got in the background. I must say,
it is. I've got to say, I've landed on our feet. We were looking for a temporary rental, waiting while we're trying to get our house sold and get a house renovated and sold. And we've ended up on Paratai Drive, which anyone who knows, it's the most expensive street in New Zealand. We found a house that's ready for demolition. We're getting it for a ridiculously low price. So we have Graham Hart, New Zealand's richest man, lives just up the road. Rachel Hunter lives a couple of doors up. We've got, there's 5 of New Zealand's 10 most expensive houses are on my street. I've got an amazing spot, and I'm paying next to nothing for it. It's a wonderful thing. But saying that, I had to sign a waiver saying that I understood that my house was not considered habitable and that I was only living there temporarily. So there are some downsides to it.
If I was living with that view near Lakeside, I presume it's Lakeside or Riverside.
That's the harbour. I'm looking out towards Auckland Harbour.
The harbour. The harbour.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I was living there, trust me, you might want to get a crane to lift me out of there, because the amount of times I want to live near beachside or harbour side is just ridiculous. So, thank you for sharing that amazing view. And I've just not been able to take my eye off it, because, I just think, well, it looks like Michael's living the dream and I'm here 2 hours away from the city. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
No, we've got a pretty good spot for the moment. It's only temporary. We won't be here forever, but we're making the most of it while we are.
No, well, absolutely. But anyway, on that positive, happy note, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Adam. Please follow them on Twitter. They love your interactions. They also give their opinions of their own. Thank you for joining, and we will see you two guys hopefully for the Bangladesh series. Thank you for coming so much about this series.
Cool. Catch you later.
Thanks, guys.
See you later, guys. See ya.